This is a senior class at Compass College. These guys are all writers. They're all doing really well. They're writing screenplays. Some may go out to LA to join you out there one day. They've all read your book a couple of years ago. Here it is. Can you sign this right through the cyberland here? Just thank you. Make it out to my friend Jesse here. Good to see you again this year. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start off with the first question. Who was the first one for Chris?
Hi, Chris. My name is Montana, and thanks for talking to us today. I have your template for like plot structure based on like character development hanging on my wall. So like your writing has been super influential in my own, and I was just curious. Joseph Campbell has a theory that story is the idea of it's ubiquitous. It transcends culture and language. And if we were reverted back to cave people, we would all still tell the same story structure. Do you, having studied that work and really reported well on it, do you agree that like story is ubiquitous in that sense, or do you kind of have like a departure based on your own like outcomes?
Oh, I'm along with Campbell on that one because what I've come to realize is that the patterns are hardwired into the human nervous system, and that it seems to have been part of the evolution of the brain that we realized on some deep level as a species that we needed to improve our communication ability and our ability to transmit knowledge from one generation to the next. And it turned out that the best way to do that was through metaphors and poetry and songs and dances and all the arts and storytelling. And we evolved this ability to imagine and to project ourselves into a place I call the story place. I didn't make that up. That comes from the Disney Imagineering world. They talk about the story place. And to me that means when you hear a story or you think of a story, you create a space somewhere. It's maybe it's in your head, or I think of it as alongside of my head somewhere. I'm generating this story place, and other animals can't do that, not as well as we can. So I think that it is something that's universal. Now, it has to be said, every time we talk about things like this, that it does have lots of local variations, and that people think of a story as a certain kind of set of conditions, and the conditions are a little different from one tribe to the next, or from one set of peoples to the next. But generally speaking, yeah, I mean, that's why we can have world cinema, because people in every culture can take these things in and have something change inside them. That's something that turned out to be of high value. So that's a great question.
Good question, really good answer. Next. Shelby.
Hi, I'm Shelby.
Can you hear in the back there?
Absolutely, yep.
What advice would you give to young writers trying to get their foot in the door out in the actual industry?
Did you hear that, Chris? What advice for young writers trying to get their foot in the door in the industry?
Yeah, sure. Have big pointy shoes. Your foot in the door. I think that one of the most valuable things you can do at this stage is read a lot of scripts and compare them to the movies, especially if you take something that you really enjoyed, something that really spoke to you, something that where you felt, I could have written that, or I wish I had written that. So you take something like that and really possess it. And that means read the script while you're looking at the finished product, comparing to see how it changed, seeing how they express something on the page and then how it comes out on the screen. That exercise is going to pay off for you, I think, more than almost anything else you can do at this stage. And then the next thing, I think, from the sort of practical career point of view, would be to scripts into contests of various kinds. Like there's the Nichols Fellowship, that's one of the famous screenwriting competitions, but I just came from Austin, for the Austin Film Festival, and they have a screenwriting competition. Getting into those competitions and placing, you don't have to win, but if you get, second runner-up or, best in show of a particular genre, those distinctions add up and make it a little bit of a difference. When you've written one script, you're in a gigantic swimming pool with a lot of other people. When you've written 2 scripts, you're in a smaller pool. When you've written 10 scripts, you're in a much smaller swimming pool, and it's easier to sort of see you. So just keep writing, write a lot, but also read a lot of scripts, and see if you can get some kind of distinction by being in some writing contests. That does seem to help, because somebody's approved it, and that way it's easier for people, the decision makers, to say, yeah, let's give this one a shot.
In films that get produced today, what's the most frustrating thing, something that you just really wish that you could change?
Well, I would say that, the bulk of what the studios are producing right now is sequels and chains of things and franchises and so forth. And they've gotten themselves into a trap where they don't know how to revive the third act, how to recreate or rethink the third act. Third act is exactly the same in almost all of the movies. There's some titanic battle between 2 superhero forces with lots of people picking each other up and throwing each other through buildings and picking up cars and trucks and so forth and throwing them. And even a movie that made me cry and was, fantastically successful, Wonder Woman, fell into the same trap. The last, 30 minutes or so of the film is just like all the others. So that's frustrating to me, that they can't see their way out of the trap. And if I were, directly involved, I'm sort of at a distance now, because I don't have a studio base or a home base in the studio right now. But if I did, I'd be campaigning hard to do something different, just like symphonies that can fall into a composer will do something. He'll say, all right, in this next symphony, I've done 3 great big crashing endings. In this symphony, I'm going to tiptoe out, and I'm going to leave the audience with a completely different feeling at the end. And that's frustrating to me that they don't see that they need to that particular part of the pattern. So that's my beef at the moment.
That's a good one. Mark.
My name is Nathan, and my question is, what do you like in a director-writer relationship? What are some things you like from the director, and what are some things you don't like from working with the director?
Yeah, when you're consulting earlier with the director on a script, how does that work? How does that give and take work a little bit?
Well, the more involvement I get, the more feedback I get from a director, the happier I will be. Sometimes it's frustrating because they ask for advice, sometimes on something very, very specific, some little issue that's troubling them. That's often what I find. And I want access to the whole candy store. I want to get in there and improve everything that I can. The best situations are when you spend time with somebody and actually go over the script scene by scene and spend sometimes weeks doing that. The other thing I like is directors who are open to suggestions from other films, and I have a big inventory in my mind of classic films, older films, and I like to tell the director, hey, had you seen this film? Like when I was working with Darren Aronofsky on The Wrestler and Noah and a couple of his other pictures, I would say to him, you know, there's this Chuck Ford movie, The Searcher, and he'd say, oh, and he'd go and see it, and he'd go, wow, man, that was fantastic. That's exactly what I need here. This has got the feeling I wanted. So I like to refresh people or show them something that they haven't seen before from a classic film, and then see how they can apply it into the current project. That's a lot of my inspirational technique to point people to classic films that have some piece in them that helps. So that's one of my joys is to work that way.
Coincidentally, the class just watched The Painted Veil by an adaptation with Ron Neiswerner from Somerset Moms, a great classic novel. So they just watched The Painted Veil today on that. So we'll take a look at Great Gatsby and some other ones. You had a question earlier?
Yeah. I guess other than like competitions, would you suggest like getting an agent, or like what are some, I guess, stories of how you got your scripts out there and chosen to make movies?
Yeah, you could get an agent. I have experienced that that's kind of out of order at your stage. You're supposed to be establishing yourself without that help right now, getting some distinction through contests and that sort of thing that we discussed. And then the agents will be attracted to you. And you won't have to get them. They'll come looking for you. In the early stages of one's career, it's often the case that you have to, in fact, at later stages of your career, it's often the case that you have to get the job. And then the agent only comes along to look at the contract and do some final negotiating and, argue for some point for you, but be sure you don't get screwed. But we don't do much of the actual finding of the work for you. Even people who are well along in their careers make the connections at parties, at the film festivals. They're constantly schmoozing, talking, interacting with other people in the business. And a lot of the deals get made that way rather than the agents doing anything for you. I should just say there's a parallel thing right now. Bless you. There's a parallel thing right now. Managers. There are agents and managers. I have a manager, and there's some technical difference, but I can't really see it. He seems to me to be doing the same thing an agent is doing. So that's an okay way to go too. But I would say just don't worry about that right now until you establish yourself something and got this distinction.
There you go. Montana, I know you got to follow up.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Maybe move you back over here to.
Sure.
The man who's got your stuff actually on his wall.
That's right. I would just at least I think it's interesting. The question about plot and character, and kind of regarding that third act problem you were talking about, I totally see it as well. I've never put it as eloquently as you did, but that I totally see what you're talking about. And to me, it seems like a lot of, or at least some of the issues is more of a bent toward plot design rather than character design in the larger budgeted films now. Is that something you would agree with, or that you could elaborate more on?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's my objection, is that when we get to that point in the script where vehicles start to fly through the air and buildings start crashing, the plot takes over and the character stuff stops. We're not concerned anymore that the hero doesn't understand who his father is, or he has a problem with his girlfriend, or he's had a fight with his father or with his partner or something. You stop thinking about all that stuff, and you should be thinking about those things even more as we get towards the end of the story. So I definitely think that's one of the keys to how they could solve this problem, is if they kept something, while they're fighting, they have to have the showdown at the end, but it should also keep alive the emotional question. Is he going to forgive himself? Is he going to make up with his father or with his boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever it is? And that'll help a lot. And I want to say something too about something that just happened. When you asked that question, I got a physiological reaction. I got a little shiver down my back. And that is a very important indicator for me that somebody said something right. And I use that in meetings. You know, we'll be talking about the script at Disney or wherever, and somebody blurts out something. I think it'd be great if the rabbit jumps out right now and says, "Hey, I'm your friend. Quit chasing me." And then everybody in the room kind of shivers. You know that was a great idea. You know, and if you feel it, if you feel this little shiver down your back, that's a very clear indicator somebody said something right or beautiful or true. So this is one way I measure these things and know whether an idea is good.
Let's segue, Chris, from that to, I've been reading like you screenplays for 20, 25 years. And I've noticed in the last 3 or 4 years, the kind of screenplays like Arrival, the kind of stuff that Taylor Sheridan's doing with Hell and High Water and Wind River, very lean scripts. When I sit down and read a novel, now when I read a screenplay, I really don't want to see cut lines or we see or we hear. I want to see something that, every time there's a slug line, you know there's a new scene coming up. So are you starting to see less visual roadblocks and more lean scripts that catch you in that first minute or two, which is the first page, and really make you want to find out what's happening? Is there a certain formula, or are you seeing screenplays more condensed and better written than they were 15 years ago?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question. There is streamlining going on among the real pros. I mean, there's people who just grind it out the same way they always did, but there is a development that you detected there. And for sure, you as a reader feel you're in good hands. That's the feeling you want to create, is that, this is a writer who knows what he or she's doing, and they are past having to explain everything to you. They can just sort of drop crumbs along the way, and you will feel engaged. You feel like you're part of it. If you have to do a little bit of the guesswork, a little bit of the explanation. And I call this writing elegant writing. It's efficient, it's very economical, and it's sometimes more effective for that. For example, you don't have to say, now we make a giant close-up of the gun. All you have to say is, he looks down at, and then you drop down a line and put in caps, the gun. And just by isolating it as a separate line and capitalizing it, we know it's a close-up. You see it at the close-up as you read it. So it saves you all the mechanics. And I think that is a tendency. If we could toss out as much of the ropes and gears and all the other stuff, that's better screenwriting. So I'm trying to move that way myself to a more elegant stuff, and that's desirable. And there's another thing people do. This is a little bit of a gimmick. I like it sometimes, where they actually sort of talk to you, the reader, and say, strap yourself in because this next 10 pages is going to be amazing. They kind of have that cocky confidence of being in a conversation with you almost that can be kind of fun. But be careful with that. That didn't go overboard.
I wanted to hear your thought on exactly how independent film is kind of being gold mine. It's actually being brought up by Hollywood and being mainstream more than than ever before because obviously that's where you come in as far as that's answering why independent films is more so recognized now than ever before.
Okay, but Tom, could you speak sort of the gist of that?
Yeah, I was talking about now independent films seem to be more opportunities, more avenues. The studio system isn't quite as powerful as it was 10 years ago. So more opportunity to get independent movies and perhaps television shows together. So there's a direct question like...
Yeah, the question is why that resurgence is happening and why that trend is happening compared to other films that are more so formulaic.
I'd say the reason it's happening is you can say that in 2 letters of the alphabet, TV. Yeah, because the studios are being severely challenged by the goodness of television. And in my lifetime, there's been a complete reversal where in most of my career, people looked down on television and said, oh, I would never work in television, or I've been working in television and I'm kind of ashamed of it, but I want to work in features. And it's completely the other way now. People still want to work in features for the studios. The fun and the jobs are almost all on the television side. And it is really like a tidal wave that's pushing Hollywood to be more unconventional, more surprising, to take and twist the assumptions of the audience. This is what you might call Game of Thrones effect. As I'm sure you know, that one has shaken people up by challenging assumptions about heroes that once, it used to be, once you identified who the hero was, you would count on the hero still being alive at the end of the story. And now you can't count on that. And you can count on the villain being the villain all the way through. But sometimes now, the villain might turn out to be the hero. So all of the assumptions are out. And I think this is great. This is healthy. And it's been a long time coming. So I'm absolutely delighted by it. So it's good times. I think as you are sort of planning your career, you should be thinking about writing for television and trying to understand how they plot out a long story. You have to write short little scenes, but you also have to think big over a whole arc of maybe 5 years. And that's a different kind of thinking. I'll just give you one tip, which is the secret of it all is about questions. For a long show, you need one giant question that's over the whole show. Will humanity survive? Will die? Some big thing like that. And House of Cards. Will the president be brought down? And it's smaller questions for each season, each episode, and each scene. It really is a lot about the questions. And on 2 levels, the inner question and the outer question. The outer question, will the institutions survive? The inner question, how will the people feel about it? Will they be destroyed by it, or will they come out on top? So those things are what drives these longer forms.
There's time for about one more question. Who wants to do that burning one? Jesse?
Sure.
Ogre.
Hi, thanks for joining us. So I guess my question would be, all the advice in the world is really great, but it's so busy, and it's so hard to sit down and find solitude and concentrate. What advice do you have for all of us in creating that space and getting in the right mindset to write?
Good question. Defining the time, making the time to sit down and turn out the pages.
Well, I have taken a note there from a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And she made a point about something called morning pages. And that means that every day you try to work your schedule so that one of the very first things you do is you get your coffee and you sit down and you write something. It doesn't matter what. She makes a big point about that. It doesn't matter what you write. it can be what I made for dinner last night. It can be what I thought about the movie I saw last night. It can be, what am I going to do today? Gee, I got a lot of errands and things I got to do. But it creates muscle memory in your hands, either write paper or to type, and you get into that habit. And this is, you're training the body to do like it was a horse or a dog that you're training. And the deal with animals is, if you're training a horse to ride, the first day you go out to ride, the horse goes, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. I want to go back to the barn. I don't like this. The second day, the horse goes, I want to go back to the barn. The third day, the horse goes, are we going? Where's the saddle? Are we going to go? How come we're not going? Let's go. The body is just like the animal that way. And this is how you make it so that you actually miss it when you don't do something every day. And this is what I see in the pros, is that they get itchy if they aren't working on something. They know, hey, my body is tuned to do this, so it becomes part of it. So that's just one little clue. And ritualize things. I do a whole process that has to do with just meditating. I kind of get into an elevator in my mind and go down layer as I'm breathing. And then I might do 10 repetitions of deep breathing while the elevator is going down the whole time. And then mentally, I step out into a screening room and I sit down mentally in the screening room and say, okay, projectionist, roll it, and then imagine the next scene coming up. And I just say, okay, what's the next scene? Or how do I get out of this problem? And I sit back and I let my unconscious do that for me. And again, these are habits. These are things that you repeat several times over just over a week or so. If you did that every day, that would become part of your life pretty soon, and it could really help you. So I bet we've come to our time, sadly.
We have. Great closing advice. Let's hear it, everybody. Thank you so much, Chris. I'll be back out in LA in January. Maybe we can grab a lunch. And thank you very much for this. And I really appreciate your time every year joining us. Have a good day.
I'll see you all in Hollywood.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.